Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development 1100 C# Programming Fundamentals class, I'm going to be doing a series of video presentations based on the PowerPoint slides for the textbook which will be used for the course, that being, as you can see on your screen, Muroc C# 2015. There are a total of 26 chapters in this book. I plan on doing presentations on each chapter. I try to keep these presentations down to the 15 to 20 minute range. If they run longer than that, I'll tend to break it up into a couple presentations. So far I've only done Chapter 1, how to get started with Visual Studio. So as you'd guess, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into Chapter 2, how to design a Windows Form application. And in that chapter, the author actually has you create a fairly simplistic Windows form that looks like this. So I'm going to create that, and as I go through this, creating the form, I'm going to bounce back and forth between the actual code and the form and what you see here and these PowerPoint presentations. Hopefully I won't confuse anyone by going back and forth, but I think it'll be much easier to do that. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do, as I mentioned in the last chapter, I have already gone out to visualstudio.com/downloads. I've already downloaded the free Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition. And if you see this here, I call it the bow tie, call it whatever you want. You can go and grab and make a copy of that or save that icon to your desktop, and that's what I have here. So I'm going to click right here to just start it. Notice it says Visual Studio in 2019. Don't worry about the stuff that comes up on here because I'm creating projects for another class. Alright, but when this comes up, you will either click this X or click Create a New Project. For whatever reason, I never choose a new project this way. I always just click the X and start right here. All right. In fact, I guess I shouldn't have done that. That's the way that I used to do it. Let me just come back in. All right, we will do it this way. So I'll click Create a New Project. There we go. And it says, what kind of project do you want to create? In this class, more than anything else, we're going to be creating console apps, and I haven't even looked in here to see where it is. So probably here, a console app and Windows Form apps. We will do both. For now, since the author showed you in the book, and I already mentioned this to you, this particular thing, this is a Windows form. So since that is, I'm going to create a Windows form. C# Windows form. I think this is the right setting. So I'm going to click on there and click Next. And it says, what do you want to call this? Well, they call it Invoice Total. This will be the name of your project. Okay? So you really shouldn't put any blank spaces in there. But as soon as I type in Invoice Total, now don't hit enter yet, because the first thing it's going to ask is, where do you want to save this? Well, for now, when I'm doing these, I'm not going to worry about source control. I'm just going to go right to my desktop and I'm going to save it there. Now sometimes that comes up. When it does, typically you have to just do it twice. So again, desktop, and there it changed. Now, by default, when you create a project name, your solution name is exactly the same. I don't want that. So I'm going to call this solution Chapter02 Invoice Total. So I know it's from Chapter 2. You don't have to do that. But I think it'll make it much easier as I'm going through and doing these. So I click Create. And the magic should happen on screen. It may take a few seconds, but it's going to start to create the project for me. There it is. You say, what do you mean there it is? If you remember from the last chapter, this is my Solution Explorer. This, and I can make this bigger or smaller on an as-needed basis. This is my Properties window. This is my Form Designer. And if I click on View and I choose Toolbox, there's my toolbox. If I click on that, you say, well, it's blocking this. Just click on this little stick pin that's up here, and boom, there it is. So now what I have, what I'm showing in front of you is the way this is going to look as we build this stuff. I can make this smaller if I want to, wider, narrower, longer, etc. It looks like in the book it's all about that size. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, let's jump back into our slides then. All right, so we're on Chapter 2, How to Design a Windows Form Application. And as mentioned, I'm going to bop back and forth. All right, and you're going to see me, I'm going to always be cognizant of my time, exactly where I am. So, slideshow from beginning. I'm already showing you this stuff. I'm going to try to go through everything that's in here, everything that's shown in the slides. I've already shown you where the toolbox is, the properties window, etc. So you'll keep seeing this stuff as we go on and on. Now they show you this option dialog. All right, this isn't that important of a thing. All right, but it's where you can go and you can set some of your global options if you don't like the way that they're set. We'll go over this in class. You already saw this. My new project dialog box did not look the same as the one here. This is the way it looked for Visual Studio 2015 with 2019. It's been updated, upgraded, whatever you want to call it. Notice they did call theirs Invoice Total. They saved theirs. They created a folder called C# 2015. I don't have that. You can do that if you want. Who cares? So this is what I'm going to create. So let me take a couple minutes to create this. And as I am creating it, I want to walk through it with you and let you know, show you what I'm doing. All right? So let me see. I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try doing this. That is, I'm going to try to have, now they won't both stay on the screen, but I do want you to see this, whoops, while I'm doing it. Okay, hopefully what I'm saying is making at least a little bit of sense. So this is this. The first thing I want to do is notice it says Invoice Total up here. Mine says Form 1, so let's change that. All right, if I click on the form, then it says Form 1. That's the name of my form right now. It's a bad name because it's so generic. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up right to the top, and where it says Name Form 1, I'm going to change this from Form 1 to Form Invoice Total. Hit Enter, and you'll notice it changed my name up here. Didn't change this. That's not the name of anything. That's just some text. But now, as I'm naming things, my form, instead of being called Form 1, is now called Form Invoice Total. A better name. All right? Now I'm going to go down here in my Properties window, and I'm going to find the text that says Form 1. And notice under text it says Form 1. So I will highlight it, type in Invoice, space, Total, hit Enter. Now that's changed. Now I have Invoice Total right there. All right. Now, I haven't done much. I think everybody would agree with that. All right. But what I'm starting to do is I'm starting to make this look like this. The next thing I want to quickly do is build my interface, and I think that's about all I'll have time for. I'm already up to almost 10 minutes. Now, these things that you see right here, subtotal, discount percent, discount amount, and total, these are called labels. We'll go over them in a minute. These things right here are called text boxes. All right? Now, the 3 text boxes that are in the bottom, you'll notice that they're kind of grayish. It means they're read-only. I can't change them. This is the only place where I'm going to be able to enter something. These 2 things, calculate and exit, are buttons. So I want to create 4 labels, 4 text boxes, and 2 buttons. I'm going to do that right now by coming over where it says All Windows Controls. I'm going to click there. I'm going to find where it says Label, and I'm going to drag up. There's my first label. So you just saw one way to create a control, and that is to just sit there, left mouse click, and drag it up. How about a second way? What if I double click on the control? And that creates one as well. How about a third way? I can highlight a control, do a Control C to copy, and a Control V to paste. There's my third one. I've got one more to do, and I'll just go and I usually bring them in like this because you've got control over exactly where they are. So there's my 4 labels. Don't worry about what they say. Don't worry about the size. Don't worry about anything. Let's go over down here to text box, and we'll bring this up. There's my first text box. There's my second text box. There is my third text box. And there is my fourth text box. Finally, I need to go back up to the top again, bring in my first button and my second button. Now, you may or may not agree, but my interface pretty much, this interface here is pretty much done. This interface pretty much looks like this one. So, well, that one's narrower, etc. Okay, then let's click on here and let's narrow this up. All right, it doesn't look great. It doesn't look terrible, but it now is pretty much looking the same way that the other one looks. Now, when I come back in the next lecture, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to rename these controls, because right now their names are Label 1, Label 2, Label 3, and Label 4. These text boxes, their names are Text Box 1, Text Box 2, Text Box 3, and Text Box 4. And these buttons are named Button 1 and Button 2. So the first thing that we're going to do is what I always suggest you do first, that is rename your controls. After we rename the controls, the next thing we're going to do is change the text. This will say subtotal. This will say discount percent. This will say discount amount. And this will say total. These will all be empty, these 4 boxes, but we'll make these 3, the bottom 3, read-only. Then we will change the text on this button to calculate and the one on this one to exit. All right, I will come back and do that in the next part of the lecture very shortly.